Hey, what's up YouTube? My name is Mr. Kyle Cohen. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video and my YouTube channel. Today I am bringing you part 2 of my teacher tip series. I am sitting down with some of my favorite fellow educators who are doing such phenomenal work in the field of education across our country. If you missed part 1 of our series, make sure to check out that video. I will link it down below, somewhere up here. In part 1 of our series, we talked about some common mistakes that teachers, particularly first-year teachers, make in their classrooms. Totally recommend checking out that video, especially if you are a first-year teacher. In today's video, we are focusing specifically on race, thinking about the work that we can be doing as educators to build inclusive, culturally relevant classrooms that all of our students deserve. I really hope you enjoy the conversation, and let's get into it. Thinking about teachers who are stepping into classrooms in the fall and the importance of building classrooms where students can feel safe to have conversations and explore ideas and be comfortable learning different ideas and things like that. What advice would you give to a new teacher thinking about building a classroom that is responsive and that is culturally relevant, especially during the time that we're living in now?
When I think about it, I'm like, well, start with yourself, you know,
Yeah.
and start with your own identity and how that shapes like how you show up and like in your classroom. And then just like interrogate everything, like really like interrogate your curriculum and like encourage your students to do the same and like have them ask like, you know, who wrote this? Let's look into the author. Like, what's the author's background? Whose perspective is missing from this text? And don't be afraid to like challenge your own assumptions and biases and supplement curriculum.
And I also think that there are so many great resources out there that like now that we're basically quarantined, some of us have a lot of time on our hands. And so like what better way than to like find those resources and find those great things that you can use come potentially if you enter the classroom or if you're distance learning. I think that there are things that are already created that you can turn into your own. So as a first year teacher, when we're talking about priorities, if like creating something brand new really overwhelms you, find something that you think that you can make your own, but already kind of has that mold.
I think something that's popping up for me is not being afraid to lean into those teachable moments. I agree 100% resources and being intentional about the curriculum that you bring in your classroom, being intentional about pieces of the curriculum that you want to teach with. But I think there are some moments in our curriculum that don't capture everything. And so when a teachable moment comes about, don't be afraid to go off the script, I guess, per se, and to really lean into that and really talk about that and have students to give voice to it in their perspectives, and to, you know, really just sit in that. Because I think although academics are important, being a human being and learning about yourself and learning about the world around you is equally, if not important. And that's something that teachable moments give opportunity to venture into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And even with our littlest babies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I think of the I think like Rachel mentioned, like the real little ones. I think a huge part of cultural competence, right? Cultural competence and culturally responsive like pedagogy and teaching, right? It means like culturally responsive pedagogy and teaching. And so we like start with ourselves when we do like the self work and we interrogate like everything. We're like really diving deep, and then like we're not afraid to lean into those teaching moments. I think we need to pair that also with like cultural competence in the sense of like child development, right? What's appropriate for, you know, teaching K-1-2 has a different approach, not like what's not appropriate, but like has a different approach than the things that you would go like teach with in high school. And so like you don't ignore that, and you definitely yield to children. Like they can pick up on these things and they know that. You know when to step back and like have it, and it's important to like present that, but make sure to be like sensitive and like extremely deliberate and cognizant as you're interrogating, like how will this reach my audience, my students best to like really be meaningful and have the highest impact.
And don't be afraid to bring in special guests and bringing
No.
parents and bringing organizations that support the mission and the view or the environment you want to create for your classroom, because they're amazing supporters, and they bring beauty and perspectives to the classroom for your students and for your community. So
What about if like you're trying to push these ideas in how you think, like how you know at your core like you should be teaching, right? Like you know that like this cultural relevance piece is why I came into teaching, and it's why I'm here, and I'm so excited to provide these opportunities for my students. But there are people around you who aren't necessarily feeling that same level of energy or importance, or they're like more sort of like been around the block a little bit more. They're veteran teachers, and it's more of like, no, we don't do things that way. Like that's not really how we teach that lesson or that curriculum. How do you approach that as a new teacher? What does that look like to make sure that you're meeting these standards in a way that you know they need to be taught?
I feel like this happened kind of in my first school, and I don't think I did the best job. I think I closed my door and I like kind of just did what I wanted, and I didn't try to potentially bring people in. And so like that was great for like me and whoever was in my classroom at that time, but it benefited nobody else. So I guess my first question would be curious and ask why, and to hear their perspective, and then kind of see what happens from that conversation. But like also if that's something that you're super passionate about and knowledgeable, then like bring to the table, kind of like what Wynter was saying, like if that's something that you bring and you can advocate for, bring it to the table and like show them the resources, show them the books that you're going to use. And I think that if it's something, if they care about you, that then they'll listen and they will attempt to understand. But that's something that I definitely wish I had the courage to do, is like have those conversations, or like even ask this simple like why, and I didn't do that. And I definitely, if I could go back in time, would ask be more curious.
I'm the rebel, like I don't care if you like it or not. I'm gonna do it. Like that's why I was like quiet over here. Like I don't want to learn how to step up and step back. But if this benefits the students, and I hear from parents and from other students that this is helpful, I don't care what you say, other teacher or veteran teacher, because your opinion or your perspective is irrelevant in this moment. That might be harsh, but I think my background has been, you fight for what you believe in, even if you're standing alone. And sometimes those are hard battles to fight, but they're necessary. But I would say, like I said before, if it's something, and I agree, if it's something you feel strong about and you get confirmation all around, then fight for it, even if you're fighting alone. Because I think when people see how hard you're fighting at this and how passionate you are, then you will start to change perspectives. And I think people then jump on board to support and help in any way that they can. And if they don't, who cares? It's not for them. It's for your students and for your community, that the community that you're serving. So when they see the change and how it transformed life, then they have no choice but to give you props, but more importantly, to jump on board with what you stated in the beginning. Sometimes you just have to just do it. What is it? Sometimes you have to ask for forgiveness and ask for permission, something like that. Yeah.
A lot of like speaking for like my school in particular, a lot of like the pushback comes from other white teachers. And so I think a lot about like how I myself as a white teacher have an obligation to kind of, like Mari was saying, like ask those like questions of like, oh, why are you doing it like this? And like, might it benefit students if we do it in a different way? And like really call folks in and like help bring them along, because like at the end of the day, like if these folks are in front of students, like we want to be like continuous learners and just always getting better, working on ourselves and our identities and becoming better for our kids.
Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you liked what you see, make sure that you subscribe to the channel so that you do not miss parts 3 and 4 of the series. I'm incredibly grateful that you are here, and I'll see you in the next one.